and welcome back to another episode of The Book Stop. I'm your host Jen, and I'm very excited to talk about today's episode. But before we begin, there will be spoilers as we talk about major events that unfold within the story. In addition, each episode will have a list of trigger warnings in the description. Be sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at The Book Stop Podcast, and show your support on Patreon for early access to episodes and other additional content. Let's talk about a book, shall we? We are gathered here once again by some lady I found on the street.
I'm so happy to be here.
We're back again with Sabrina, and what book did you bring to talk about today?
Today I brought one of my favorite books from my childhood that I would say holds up better than most that I've read. The Giver by Lois Lowry.
Awesome, yeah. You actually got me to read this book way back when we were in, because I didn't read it in high school. I know it's kind of on the reading list for a lot of schools, but the school I went to, we never had to read this book. I read it after high school. Yikes, I don't know how people read this in school. Yeah, so The Giver is written by Lois Lowry. It won the 1994 Newbery Medal as well as the Regina Medal. And then in 1996, it won the William Allen White Award. Pretty cool. So they also made a stage adaptation, and then they made a movie in 2014 with, I think, Taylor Swift was in it or somebody. I don't know.
I don't know about that.
I think she was the daughter.
Was she really? I didn't watch it, if I'm being honest. I really liked this book, and I'm always scared to watch movies after when it's like a childhood book thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin anything. I do really like the actor that was in it. I liked him at the time that it came out. I don't even remember his name.
Me either.
I remember a couple movies he was in my head.
Alright, so we're going to play a little game right out the gate here, and you're going to summarize this book in 30 seconds.
Alright, so in this book you have a society, I would say in the future, based on just sameness. Everything is the same, everything is chosen for these people. The main character, Jonas, is assigned a role where he has to receive all of the memories from the past, and it's very painful and real.
Yeah, there's a lot that happens in this book, but at the same time, it feels like not a lot happens. It's a weird time frame, because I feel like a year and a half goes by, a year at least.
Yeah, it's about a year and a half, and it's a very short book. My copy is super tiny. I know yours is a little bit bigger, but it's still a pretty short book, only a couple hours read, but it feels like a lot happens, yet so little does, because they dive into little details of certain things, but then kind of skip over it's been 4 months and now I can do this.
Yeah.
So it's a longer time period, but only focuses on little moments.
Yeah. Alright, I'm going to summarize it for anybody that for some reason hasn't heard of this book. Jonas and his family unit lives in a society free of crime and sadness. Everything is chosen, from your family to your partner to your job. At the age of 12, children are assigned their jobs, which they are trained to do until they enter the house of the old. Jonas stands apart from the community when he is chosen to become the new receiver of memory, a highly honored role, as there is only one person allowed in the whole world. Jonas learns from the Giver that society has been kept free of all the negative aspects of life, such as starvation, war, and hatred. The receiver of memory is the only person who holds all the bad and good memories of the past. Although they are protected from harm, they are also not exposed to the wonderful aspects of life, love, and true happiness.
Life, love, and the pursuit of happiness.
Absolutely. I do really like this book. I forget how deep it gets, especially Jonas being 12, 13 and having to experience these things at such a young age. I feel like if he was a little bit older, I don't know, I feel like it wouldn't hit as hard as an actual child feeling it.
Right.
But I guess you could kind of think of all the adults kind of being children, because they don't experience any of this either.
Age is different in their society. After their ceremony of 12 they don't even care about age anymore until they just turn old. They don't even have a specific age for that. It's just, oh, you're old, now you go live here. Children to them are so different. They are just very, bred to be exactly how they want them to be, and they do play some and, have some fun, but they also have perfect language and just be perfect. They can't accidentally drop their bike in the street. And they have to wear, a specific coat to signify what year they are.
Everything's very strategic.
Yeah.
And delicately placed.
Yeah.
Everything has a reason behind it. You can't go against that reason or you'll be released. But yeah, so what in this book is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote comes from the Giver when he's talking to Jonas. Jonas says, "Since you have so much power," and the Giver corrects him, "honor. I have great honor, so will you, but you will find that that is not the same." So in this society, nobody has any power besides the elders. Although he advises the elders and has all of the knowledge for them, he has no power, just like anyone else. The only thing that he has is a title, but he doesn't even use that. He still has to follow all the same rules as everyone else does, and he has all of this stuff inside his head that no one else gets to know about, yet he still can't do anything different. I think that was kind of like a humbling moment for Jonas to be like, wow, this sucks, pretty much, as he has to hold all of this and really gets nothing out of it other than helping these people who don't care about him. So the real moments in it where you're like, yeah, you don't have anything. Like, the Giver is so real with him. The way that he grew up, he wasn't allowed to ask questions. Everything is just so flat that now the Giver is honest with him and he can ask anything, and he just kind of is, this is how it is. And the Giver pretty much tells him it sucks. It's a thankless job.
Yeah.
And it's a painful job.
To go back to where you say, like, how he has to follow the rules, I don't think he's like the one person that doesn't have to follow every single rule.
True. Not every single one, but he still can't, like, tell anyone about anything.
Like, he has his own set of rules.
Right.
So they differ from what everyone else, like, everyone has, like, a monitor in their house that has, like, a speaker on it. Like, no one can turn it off, but he can. And, like, he has his own specific rules that play out in the society, and you get to see how differently he's treated when you get to meet him and see his world, and you get to see how astonishing that is as Jonas sees it. And he's like, whoa, you can do this? And then he's like, oh, wow, I want to have that power of being able to, like, lie and stuff like that, but
anything that gets him more knowledge, they don't really care about. And obviously he can't tell people everything that he knows, so he has to lie a lot of the time.
Yeah, so my favorite quote I brought is, so he's thinking this moment where he wants to share these things that the Giver has given him, but he can't. That's one of his rules, is he can't tell anybody. But he says, even trained for years as they all had been in precision of language, what words could you use which would give another the experience of sunshine? No matter what bad thing he gets, he always tries to remember sunshine. We're talking about war and starvation and all this kind of stuff. But there are those good things like sunshine and Christmas and love and all that kind of stuff.
It's one of those lines that kind of made me stop for a second and be like, I don't know how I could explain this to someone who hasn't felt it, because any word that I would try to use to explain, their society doesn't know those words either. So, like, everything when he's receiving the memories, he gets the words for everything that he's never had. Anything I could ever think of were the words he got there. It's weird to think, like, I have no clue how I would explain that. The same thing as, like, color, how he can actually see color. I would have no clue how to explain that to someone who's never seen it.
It's like explaining to somebody that's been blind their entire life what you look like. You can be as descriptive as you want, but they'll never really understand fully, completely what you look like.
It's something like if they haven't experienced it, then they'll never truly understand it, no matter how much he would try to explain.
So what are some things that you liked about this story?
Honestly, I like a lot of things about this story. I'm just so glad that when I read it again as an adult, I still really liked it. I still think it's kind of crazy because I read this book in middle school. I believe it was like 6th grade. I don't know 100%, but it was definitely middle school. And I really didn't understand it the same, I guess. Reading it again, I would say it is one of my favorite books still. I really love the description and how you get to just see him experience everything for the first time as a 12-year-old. I can't imagine experiencing all these things for the first time. Most of it, I was so young, I don't really even remember the first experience. It's just always been there. And there's a lot of things that he has to experience that I never have. Obviously, like war. I can't imagine you having to feel that and then just go on with your day with everyone around you just not understanding. I wouldn't be able to do this job. They would not have picked me for this. I just love the description and how good Lois is at describing experiences, and like he's on the sled, on the hill. Like I could feel that. Like I felt like I was there. I know I've been on a sled, on a hill. Also really love the, like, perception of color in this, because color, I love color. Like, our whole house is, like, rainbows and color everywhere. And, like, I also, like, really love black and white, but, like, they can't even see black and white. Everything's just the same.
Gray.
It's, like, dull and sad. I would be miserable. I love color. It's so fun. It's a way for people to express themselves, but in this world, they can't express themselves at all. The perception of color, and then showing, like, the different meanings behind it and teaching him that. He saw red as, like, the apple in Fiona's hair, and then he saw it as blood and, you know, fire, and the colors that he'd learned to love also brought pain, and that I always thought was really cool to just kind of go over that and have him, like, experiencing the color was, like, my favorite part. Put yourself in this world of, like, I would be so miserable, but I wouldn't know it. Mm-hmm. And that's the hardest part, is, like, you're reading this and all these people are miserable, but they don't know that they are, because they're actually not, because everything is just the same. Yes, it's easier, but, like, I can't imagine not having, like, choices and experiences I have every day. Like, I can wake up and choose how my day goes, and they have to do the exact same thing every single day, but they don't even know that there's anything different.
Absolutely.
That's the hardest part.
It seems like in a utopia-style society where everything does seem so good, it's so organized, and I loved how she laid it out, and how everything was so organized, like you said at the beginning with the age groups, and how every time you advance to another age, you unlocked a new thing in society, getting your bike, and getting the ribbons, and getting the coat, and getting a job. I liked how that was all organized and laid out. I also really like how the story unfolds and how Jonas learns. So the Giver has these memories, and he, like, transmits them into Jonas's back. So he, like, lays down. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, when he first lays down, you're like, but then you're like, no, I trust the Giver with my life, so he's fine.
Yeah, like, he takes his shirt off and everything. It's not the Giver, the Jonas.
That would be a whole different story.
Yeah. So yeah, he lays down, and he gets these memories, and I just love how descriptive it is, and even when it gets a bit gory. We all know, in a society right now, we know how things get gory, but it's just different seeing it in this, like, stark reality, where you are looking at it from a child's perspective of not knowing anything, and seeing how he takes it all in. I really love how she unfolds that. Going back to the sameness again, we're going to talk about it a lot in this episode, because it's kind of like the main point of the story, but I did like how everyone did have a personality. So they didn't make them completely blank. The dad's voice when he talks to Gabriel has, like, a little cooey voice. How Lily's a bit sassy, and Fiona's very caring, and I love that they still have those personalities within each other. Asher's very rambunctious and doesn't take things too seriously. She didn't make them just blank characters that they don't really have a purpose. So.
Right. I think that kind of goes into, like, that's not a memory, that's something they can't take away. So I bet that is something that just drives them crazy. That they can't take away a personality. It would be so difficult. And then people wouldn't function if you took away everything up to that point. So I bet they hate so much that everyone has a personality, but, like, it's cool to still see, like, parts of actual human existence in there. Like, you know, Asher's a little rambunctious and messes words up, but then they, like, hit him to make it right. Like, they don't even get a chance to, like, learn. They just have to know it, or they get beat.
They get to the point where if you make mistakes, or if you commit a crime ever that happens, it's not very likely that it does. You're given, I think, 3 strikes, and then you're gone. You either get kicked out of the society, and you're stuck in this, like, middle zone that we didn't get a ton of in this book, but it is, at the end, it's really more described, but you get, like, kicked out of the society, or you get completely released. That's the thing we're going to talk about later, but they don't leave any room for mistakes. They give you 3 chances, after that, you're done.
The little leniency they have with the kids is barely anything. Like, they won't release him for messing up a word, but they hit him until he gets it right. So say he had a stutter or something, he would have been released way earlier because he would have been different, and that would have been too much for them.
Yeah. Like, example would be Gabriel, where he had trouble sleeping at night, and so he would cry all night long. They gave him an extra year to work with Jonas's dad, and then if he wasn't better by then, they would release him. I'm definitely not saying that age is a restriction for them. They're willing to do it, but they're a little bit more lenient towards kids. But yeah, so what are some things that you didn't like about the book?
Something that was, like, hard for me to read was, as the giver is, like, giving Jonas these terrible memories, just seeing him, like, in pain doing it, he obviously doesn't want to give these to him. He would much rather keep them for himself, but he knows that he can't. Mm-hmm. And he knows that getting too old where he can't handle it anymore. When Jonas comes in, and at first he would come in and he would send him away if he was in too much pain, but then Jonas comes in and he's like, what can I do to help? He gives him this terrible memory of war, and he gives him the memory of his, like, leg breaking, and he limps home and is like, Jonas starting to, like, lose himself a little bit with all of the pain that he gets. But you see from the giver is, like, he doesn't really have anything. He just has all of these memories. And some days they're just too much for him, which I can imagine is like every person who's experienced any of this stuff. Some days it's worse than others. He feels so bad giving it to him, but he knows that he has to. And one of the lines I wrote down is, he was like, Jonas, it will be painful, but it need not be painful yet. So this was at the beginning where, they tell Jonas that he's gonna be through a lot of pain in his experience, and it's indescribable. So Jonas goes in ready for it, and the first pain he gives him is a sunburn, and that's like, everyone's experienced that. Mm-hmm. It hurts, but compared to the stuff he gets, it's nothing. Towards the beginning, he goes easy on him because of, the trouble he had in the past of giving things too early, and he's, like, trying to protect him and keep him from these things, but it's just, like, so hard watching him know, like, he can't keep it from him forever, so he has to start giving him those, and he tries to give him, like, good things after and before to just, help him out, but he knows that it's not working, and it's slowly eating away at him as it did to him when he got these memories.
And, like, when he gives these memories to Jonas, he in turn forgets them. Mm-hmm. He might have, like, 100 days of sunshine that might last him a while, but he might only have one day of the broken leg or the sunburn, and once he gives it to Jonas, he doesn't remember it. That's how, what she was saying about how he was in pain, when he gives it away, he doesn't feel that pain anymore. So yeah,
he has, like, a brief wisp of an idea of it because he had it for so long and just gave it, but after a while he loses even that. So anything he gives away, he's honestly slowly going back into the sameness as Jonas is exiting it. What they call it in here is going beyond a lot of the time. So that's like Jonas when he first saw the apple flash red before he even started his training, is he already had the capability to see part of these things, and that's why he was selected. Seeing him pass and going beyond and learning everything, and then seeing the giver slowly forget, is like a really cool contrast there to see, like, the giver doesn't want to give him everything, but he knows he has to, and then his life is becoming a little bit easier every time because he is less and less as he's making Jonas's life harder. And it's just hard because you're like, yeah, he's an old man, so, you want him to be a little bit easier on him. But Jonas is also 12. So it's like, they're both, like, very fragile ages where you feel bad for both of them that they have to go through it. The way that their society is they have to.
Yeah. So some things I didn't like about this book was, like we said before, the time. It was just kind of loose, and I wish it was more of, I don't know, I would say a structure. I think it just went a little too fast. I definitely think that there could have been a few more chapters in this book, especially towards the beginning, because the beginning felt very telling instead of showing. Information was kind of just dumped on the reader. Mm-hmm. So I would have liked the beginning to have a little bit more detail of the society as he grows up, even just spread out a little bit more than, like, the first, like, couple chapters. It's just information after information, and it's just being, like, dumped on the reader. So you can get a little lost in it, because I think a lot of the, like, the meatier part of this book is based on the memories that he's getting and how it's affecting him and his relationship with the giver. But yeah, other than that, obviously the ending we're going to talk about in a second, but there are a few things I would change about that, or at least I didn't like about it.
Towards the beginning, it's kind of like she knew what she wanted to do with the story, and what she wanted to do was explain the memories and how everything got passed on. she wanted everyone to kind of understand this society, but that wasn't the main focus, I guess. Although it was cool to see what they gave of it, but it definitely could have, like, I would have been totally fine with a couple more chapters in the beginning of just explaining. But I also get, like, if every day is exactly the same, then she didn't want to get stuck in too much, and then it's just crazy with all the memories and stuff too. So I think the pacing was a little off. I honestly wish they would have went a little bit more into, like, that whole year he was learning, where they kind of just kept passing the things. They went a couple times into his experience around other people, like his friends that he's, been friends with forever, how he had to deal with that. I would have honestly liked to see that a little bit more, because that would be the hardest part, is being around all these people that and he now loves, but they don't know what that is. Not being able to explain anything to them, and not being able to see, like, when they're playing the game of war, and they're, like, shooting each other in the playground because they don't know what that means. And Jonas is just standing there because he's just, like, brought back to that moment of pain and is like, don't play that game anymore. So he has to become, so serious and so grown up so fast. He can't even enjoy that because he knows that that's not fun. That's not a fun thing. But it's like the same thing with our society. We played games like that as kids.
Yeah.
We learn, when we get older, what it actually means and why we shouldn't really play games like that as much, but people don't really stop kids from playing those games either.
This story isn't completely off of what we experience today. Like, there's a lot of comparing age restrictions. We have age restrictions now. Like, you can't buy cigarettes until you're 18. You can't drink alcohol until you're 21. Obviously, in the Sameness, it's a little bit more strict, but there are things like you can't go to school until this age. Like, there's restrictions, and a lot of it is to just keep people safe. But it also is pulling back some choices that people have, being able to vote. You can't vote until you're older. There are teenagers, people of younger age, that do have a voice, and they do care, and they want to express it. So I feel like there is a lot of compare and contrast, like the innocence of childhood. Sure, we experience things in our world a little bit faster than these kids do, or ever do. But there are still, like, the miracle of Santa, for example, and, like, having all of these innocent things that children learn to kind of teach them good things. There are those similarities. And like you said, with playing the war game, like playing video games nowadays, like, video games have war, and even though we, as a society, know that war is a negative thing, we still play it off as, like, it's just something to get rid of energy. Like, that's what Lowry called it in the book. It's just a game for them to release energy. It's not any meaning anything. Yeah. And people play video games to release frustration. So there are these connections between our society and their society, and there's one big contrast, like, of how being different is so bad. There, it's very abnormal, and here we kind of embrace it. And we empower people to be different. They're not too far off. They are kind of, they're like parallels. They're on the same wavelength, but they're different.
Obviously, there's so many ways that our society could change as well and be better, be different. Looking at theirs is, I almost feel like this is a story of, like, well, at least it's not this bad. But then it's like, at that point, you don't know either. So then, for them, it's not bad. And for us, there's things that we don't know about that we don't think about, and so then it's not as bad. And it's the same thing where things are withheld from people, so it's easier. In this story, like, the reason behind the sameness is it's easier and it keeps people safer. And their main thing is safety. Like, that's what they talk about a lot, and the Giver talks to Jonas about it a lot, is this is a lot safer. This is the way that it should be. And then after time, Jonas kind of convinces the Giver that things should change. That was really cool to see, is, like, these memories have been passed on from, Giver to receiver. I don't even know how many times. Back and back and back is what they always say. Jonas to have so much power to change the Giver's mind of things should change. This isn't how it should be. People should be able to experience some of this stuff. And then, kind of convinces him that he should do what he does in the end.
I was reading it, and I feel like the Giver was kind of almost on the same boat as Jonas. I feel like, I wouldn't necessarily say convince. Maybe he got him to just align with him a little bit better. Especially with his past with his daughter. But I feel like he kind of wanted the world to change as well. And he saw how bad it was getting. So the Giver also, with him growing in age, he knew things needed to change, but he just physically couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, so. I think it was like a good pairing, those two, of you can see how this is and how it was. Mm-hmm. And Jonas is like, this needs to change. And the Giver was like, okay, cool, someone else gets it. Like, yeah. I think definitely his experience with his daughter really changed that, and how, like, he had to watch her release and how he felt that, because he actually has feelings. Yeah. Whereas, like, his partner, wife, whatever, who probably didn't even know anymore anything happened, didn't have to experience that. So that definitely changed him and pushed him more in that direction, I'm sure, before Jonas even got there. And then I think the two of them just kind of worked together to be like, we have the same idea here. This needs to change. Yeah. He said at the beginning, he was like, oh, you're very old, which he would think in, like, our society is kind of rude to say. Mm-hmm. And, like, in their society, he said, you know, being old has a lot of honor. Like, you're treated differently because you're old. For them, that wasn't a rude thing to say. It's like, you could just straight up be like, hey, you're really old. And, like, yeah. And then the Giver's like, I'm not as old as you think either. So it's
like a sharp 40.
Yeah, probably.
But he looks like he's 90.
Yeah, but, like, the weight of all these memories, we have way more than the people in the Sameness have. Like, we know of these things, but not every person experiences all of this stuff. So I get how that would weigh on you a lot. And, like, I personally wouldn't be able to handle all of that stuff. I know that. You know, Jonas is brave. Apparently I'm not brave. That's fine. I don't want to be brave if this is what it means. Going back to, like, when they say, like, the pain was describable, it's like the human existence is indescribable. And, like, the pain of that and the pain that it can cause, the only way that he could tell him was showing him. And even that it's so hard to explain, because Jonas doesn't even know these things happened, and then he doesn't know why. He has to learn why these things happen, and he just doesn't agree with it either. Just like we most likely don't agree with a lot of the stuff that happens now and, like, why it happens.
So who would you say in this book is your favorite character?
Honestly, like, I hate to say the main character, because, like, I'm not that person that likes to pick the main character, but I do really like Jonas a lot. I love, like, his willpower. It's just really cool to see him go through this experience, and, like, he still shows up every day. He forces himself to get out of bed to go have this man show him the most painful experiences, and he still does it. He has a lot of strength. Really respect that as, like, a 12-year-old, or closer to, like, 14 at the end, because I remember he was one of they all turned one at the same time, whether they were born
2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago or a year ago. So I think he was one of the older ones, as he said. He was like 19 or something out of the 50, 13, 14, close to that towards the end. But, like, I can't imagine having to just feel like that every day and then just get up and do it. He has a lot of courage. The Giver wanted to keep giving him more courage, but he didn't even need it. Yeah. He was just very strong-willed and knew what he wanted and knew that things needed to change, so he was going to change them.
I also chose Jonas. I feel like every episode I do, somebody will say, I don't want to choose the main character because it's basic, but I think if you choose the main character, that's actually like a compliment to the writer, because they're able to just put so much into them to deliver a lot to it. I liked watching his character grow and develop and seeing things unfold as he watches the world around him kind of almost collapse. Like, a big one for him was the lying rule. Okay, so when he turns into the receiver of memories, he's given a list of rules, and one of the rules is that he's allowed to lie to anyone. He never really took that upon himself and be like, wait, do adults get this rule when they turn 12 or when they turn an age? So it really opened up his eyes to, like, the world around him. It kind of made him feel a little bit childish to never really think about it before. Oh, wait, they could be lying about everything. And as adults, we do lie. There's no getting around. Nobody's ever just never lied. You don't want to lie to kids because they trust you wholeheartedly, but at the same time, again, you don't want them to experience these bad things, so you kind of have to lie, so that way they stay a little happier. So I like that we kind of see that click in him, where it's lying. And at the end, when the thing happens with one of the twins, and they ended up releasing him because they're only allowed to have one child born out of a twin. So they get rid of the lower weight one.
The smaller one.
The smaller one. And he watched his dad release him. The dad just lied through the rest of the night, saying that nothing happened at work. And that's when it really hit him. And he was like, okay, I'm getting out of here. Yeah. Toodaloo.
That scene is the most powerful in the entire book, Because Jonas has all of these experiences, but they're not in his world that he lives in. Mm-hmm. They're, given to him, and then he wakes up and he's in his world again. And, he still has the memory of them, but, this one, he watched his own father. It's not actually his birth father, but, he's his father. He loves him. He knows what love is now. Mm-hmm. He watches him just pretty much kill this baby. When they talk about release in the whole story, it's a ceremony, it's a celebration, it's a good thing. Jonas gets to literally watch his dad just inject this baby, just move on. No remorse, doesn't even react. Pretty much just throws him down a trash chute. It's really messed up. Yeah. And Jonas is I can't believe my father would do this. And he doesn't even want to go home. He doesn't want to see them ever again. He can't even live with the fact that this has happened. He sees, the world that he lives in is messed up because of the way that it is, where people can't feel things and they can't make choices. And he sees how unfair it is. And so he then makes his decision of, I gotta go. I can't be here. And then when he hears about, Gabriel, how his dad says, oh, he's going to be released in the morning because he still can't sleep through the night. That's when Jonas is prompted to make his decision early and just leave, because he's grown to love this child who stayed a year in his house, and he even sees him as a little brother. He calls him his little brother on accident.
Just want to remind the listeners that this is a children's book. The Newbery Award is for children's books. Don't necessarily say this is good for children. Yeah. It's very graphic. It's very detailed in a lot of stuff. So it's an eye-opener. It's definitely an eye-opener. And I know that Lowry, when she wrote this, got a lot of feedback on it. It was two sides of one coin. It was either people loved it, thought it was great work, it was what people needed to see, as well as it being, people thought it was almost demented and too far, which I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but people have to get on their soapbox and be this is too much, we shouldn't be talking. It's a children's book, so I think if it was aimed more for young adult, I feel it wouldn't get as much hate as it did when it first released.
It's really crazy to me that this was part of my school curriculum. We read this book and talked about it, and that's insane. Yeah. I should not have read this book in middle school. How much of it did I really understand in middle school? I don't really know anymore. Hard did it hit me? Probably not nearly as hard as it, would hit someone now. And I think it would have done better as, geared more towards young adult. I get why she wanted it to be a kid's book. As much as in the book they want to protect the children from the painful things, it's part of life, and kids have to learn it. It's almost easier to see in a sense like this before they experience it themselves. Something like loss. Not every kid has experienced that by the time they read this in school. And so to read it like this and see him experience it and start to see, as they get older in things where other people experience it, movies, TV, books, whatever, and then it happens around them, it doesn't lessen the blow, because obviously it's always going to be painful, but they at least understand it before it happens to them. Most of the time. Obviously, not every kid has the luxury of not experiencing that before they get to middle school or high school, whatever. They might not understand it as well then. I do think it is a little bit much. That scene and maybe the war scene, if those wouldn't have been in there, it wouldn't have been nearly as
impactful.
Yeah. It would have ruined the story, too. Yeah. It wouldn't have helped it.
It's this book is the giver, and we're the receiver of memories.
This book is the giver.
It is literally called the giver, because it's giving us these memories. Wow. A full circle we've went.
I feel like I'm on a merry-go-round.
So another thing I want to talk about was, this is just a random little thing that I picked up. So there's different roles within the society, and it's all to help the society grow and function. There's working in the house of the old and working as the recreational person. There's working as a teacher. There's a bunch of stuff. But there was one role that a lot of people said had very little honor, and that's the role of the birth mother role. Okay, so they basically were you live in luxury for two to three kids.
I think they have 3 births, and it's 3 years, so it's straight up.
Okay, yeah.
After the birth, then the second they can get pregnant again, they do. So it's for the 3 years, and then they just become a laborer, and they just
until they go to the house of the old. Yeah. I figured being a society that can't have everybody have kids, that they would give that role a little bit more honor, because they're providing literally the next generation of the world. Like, they're giving the next people to take over for when they're gone. So I feel like that should be a little bit more honored, because they're not letting anybody else have kids. And maybe it's to discourage people to have the kids of their own, because they look so down upon the birth mothers. But I don't know, like, Lily had made a comment, because she loved kids. She loved Gabriel. She loved being around kids. So she was like, I want to be a birth mother when I grow up. And her mom was the one that said that's very little honor, and you shouldn't say that. Like, it's discouraged and kind of looked down upon. And that was another thing I didn't like, but I didn't want to bring it up then.
Right. I think a lot of people, not just girls, boys, experience when you're a kid and you tell your parent that you want to have kids, they're excited. People want them. They want their families to grow. They want, you to have the experience they had of having kids. Some people also don't want to, and that's fine. That's the world we live in now, is you get to make the choice. But, like, it's weird that they're like, yeah, I want to have kids. And she's like, no, you don't. Don't ever say that. You don't want to be that person. Like, not that the kids would be her own, but it's so weird.
I think it's more of not that she doesn't want to, like, adopt kids. It's just like she wants to physically have them.
Right. Yeah, you would think that they would want to pick the best people to have the kids if they want the kids to be good.
Right. And I'm just saying, why is it birth mothers? Why can't birth fathers get a bad rep? Anyways,
they don't talk about, like...
Yeah, they don't. They don't say how they get pregnant, so it could be, like, artificial insemination.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're allowed to do that in their society with their pills. And
they got the stirring pills, so it's not a thing. Alright, so I just want to take a minute here to recognize our Patreon subscribers. So a huge shout out to Bree P and Nick W for following the podcast. Yeah, we appreciate it. If you want to appear in one of our podcast shout outs, head over to Patreon in the description and follow today.
Wow, those are some great people on that list, and you guys should be one of them as well.
So who would you say in this book is your favorite relationship?
As much as I want to say Jonas and the Giver, because that makes sense, I'll pick something else, throw a little,
well, we want you to be honest here.
Okay. One relationship that I really did like was Jonas and Fiona. He had a crush on her. He liked her. Kids get to experience that in our society, and they don't in theirs. Is they have friends still, which at least they have friends. They don't experience of finding a person that they want to marry. Is they just get paired with someone based on, like, if they think they'll work well together personality wise, based on, like, yeah, he has a crush on her, he has dreams about her, but, like, she's a very caring person, and she always, like, wants to have his back and be like, hey, what's going on? He can't tell her anything. And honestly, just like his relationship with his friends in general, is at least he has them, Asher and Fiona, and, like, everyone else in his grade, but those are the two that are always mentioned and that he always is with. It's hard to see them growing apart when he can't experience things the same way as them anymore, and he can't really have fun the same way. And they're all, becoming adults, going into their careers. He just loves his friends and just, like, wants the best for them. He wants them to know everything that he knows, but he just knows he can't tell them. And I just think that their relationship they have is really cool. I would have liked to see a little bit more of it, honestly. They always ride their bike to work together, and it's nice to have that he still has that person that he can go to and talk to, whether he can talk about everything or not, who's the same age as him and has had the same childhood experiences up to a certain point, but it's like a choice that he gets to make. And so it's cool to see him do that in this society where they can't make any choices for themselves. He's choosing to do something different.
Yeah. It's all about human right. The choice of it. Jonah says a quote that I also like. It's the choosing that's important, isn't it? So it's not necessarily what they're doing, what clothes they wear that day, what way they wear their hair, or what bike color they want. It's not about that. It's about simply getting to choose what it is and having that free will. The Society of the Sameness just dictates the entire thing about what partner you get, what job you get. There's no free will in it. That's what's kind of the main battle of, do you choose safety or do you choose being human? And I feel like that's where this book kind of, the whole round of it is just that. Would you rather be safe, know a tiny little glimpse of happiness, or would you just rather just be human and be able to experience things in total and being able to make these choices and stuff. Him being able to choose to love Fiona when he gets older, it gets completely taken away from him. It makes it just expand so much more.
Yeah, it's really, like, the choice of it all, like, who your partner is, and then once you're given children, you apply for them, and they give you children, and, you know, your children grow up, you parent them, they move out, you move somewhere completely different, and...
Never see them.
Yeah, you don't ever see your kids. Don't really see your partner, from what it sounded like, is... Giver had a partner at one point, and he talked to Jonas about how hard it was of... You have to hide so much from them, and how... He had a partner and a child, and it's so hard to protect them from this stuff, or not tell them the stuff, I guess. And I would be so mad if someone had to if they just told me, don't pick for me, and then they just pick your kids' names. That, to me, was the worst part.
Yeah.
Don't pick my kids' names. Those are my kids.
I'll do the picking.
Right? And, like, how they talked about how, like, one name was, like, really bad. I forget what name it was that someone was given, and they were like, "Oh, that's not a very good name."
Yeah, I can't remember either.
And then they talked about, like, how much they all really liked the name Gabriel, and how it was, like, a really good name. If this child is being born specifically for you to have, let me pick its name.
To be fair, I'm surprised they even gave him names. I'm surprised they didn't just give him numbers.
Right.
You know what? They do give him numbers.
They do.
They do give him numbers. I forgot about that. They just don't... They only do that when they're, like, really frustrated with them. And they'll be like, come here, 82194.
Okay,
Okay, maybe not that many numbers. No. But they do give them numbers.
24601.
Yeah, 24601.
Jonas is 19 of his age group.
He was a 12-19 or
yeah, so he was 12-19 towards the end, but, like, he was an 11-19, 10-19, you know, once the new group moves up, then they take their place as being that number. He would always be a 19, but the first number changed based on, you know, how old he was.
Yeah, so my favorite relationship, I'm gonna go with the Giver and Jonas, because I feel like it was just the one that had the most meaning, and it felt like an actual, like, relationship. The Giver and Jonas were the only ones who understand what a relationship meant, and understood the feeling, like, they had love for each other. I like that he eventually does open up to him, because he was very respectful, Jonas, coming into it at first, and didn't want to ask him questions, and then he opened up to him as he, like, exposed him to things. So, yeah, I just really like Jonas and the Giver.
Because it's the realest one. The other ones, you know, just felt so one-sided after a certain point, because Jonas was the only one that could feel the things. Sure, he was still their friend, still their kid, or whatever, but, like, when he asked his parents if they loved him, and they said, that's the incorrect language. Do we enjoy you? Yes. Are we proud of your accomplishments? Yes. They don't know what love is, and that's so weird. Because, like, that's, like, a ground-level, basic human thing is love and, like, hate. He's the only one that gets that. And it's so weird. And, like, it's, like, towards the end. Yeah, I'm getting emotional. Sorry. Towards the end, like, he kind of starts to hate his dad.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it's just, like...
Typical, you know, just typical thing. Just hating your dad.
You hate your dad when you're 13. So I guess I get it. But it's just so sad to see, like, one-sided.
So another thing that we kind of keep dancing around is the Giver and his daughter, Rosemary, who actually became the new receiver of memory 10 years ago. And he danced around giving her the memories of the bad stuff, and she's like, no, I can take it. Then she couldn't take it when he did give it to her, and she ended up applying for release. And another one of the rules under Jonas's thing is that he's never allowed to apply for release. My question is like, why would they choose the daughter? I feel like that's just mean.
Yeah, that's super mean. I don't think he got to choose.
No, definitely not.
And I think that he should definitely have a say in who gets picked. And I would have straight up been like, no, you're not picking my daughter. But also, like, I guess if you think of it from, like, the elders' perspective, they don't realize that he would feel anything about it. They can't feel any of that. They probably have kids of their own. They don't really care. They enjoy them. They don't love them.
Yeah.
But, like, they don't think about how much that would affect him. You know, he loves Jonas, too. He tells him towards the end. He's had that relationship with his daughter, obviously. Like, she starts to get these experiences and she just can't handle it and is, I'm gonna peace out. And then they, like, have to add in that clause that he can never apply for release. But then, like, Jonas talks about it and he's like, I never would.
Yeah.
Someone like Jonas was the right choice because they went into, you know, thinking about it, where her, they just were like, I guess that's fine,
I
because
don't know.
she's your daughter? I don't know.
I feel like he would have a say, though, because they go to him for guidance.
I would think so.
I feel like he would have said something. Maybe it was the day he was absent, and they were like, let's just choose her.
It's fine.
So, I don't know. It was a bit of a plot device, maybe a little bit, to
Probably.
choose his daughter to have that backstory, I guess, but
and then
it's a bit weird.
And then he watched the release,
yeah.
and she asked to inject herself.
Yeah.
Like, that's bad. She essentially committed suicide, really, because she asked for it, she injected herself. That's kind of what they were trying to depict there.
Yeah.
In their society, she couldn't just, it's not a thing that you can just do on your own.
Yeah.
You have to apply for it, but, like, that's what that means, is she was like, straight up, I don't want to be here anymore, I don't want to do this. I don't know how she made that choice, having some of the memories already, because, like, she got a lot of good things. For her to still be like, sorry, Dad, that just shows, like, how much it weighed on her, and how, like, she couldn't even function.
And we don't know what the memory was, because when she left, it left.
Yeah.
But the memory went with her, so there's no telling what he showed her that was so bad. We're gonna play a little game here. So one big thing that happens in this book, and the thing that they narrow down on and they make a very evident in this story, is the importance of language, and how precise it needs to be. They're very strict on it, and I found that very, I guess it just mixes with that utopia, almost dystopia vibe, where you can't make a mistake even in the way you speak. So yeah, we're gonna play a little game, and I'm gonna read off some kind of generic definitions, but I want you to give me the exact words that I'm looking for.
I'm so excited.
Gave you a list of words, but some of them are very close to each other. So the first one we have is to recognize.
Is it perceive?
Mm-hmm. Next one is to gain possession.
To gain possession. I see a pretty much lose possession on here, but acquisition?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Fearful or uneasy?
It's not dumbfounded.
Nope, it's apprehensive.
Oh, I didn't even see that on here. I guess that makes sense.
To be incorrect.
Inaccurate.
Mm-hmm. Not sufficient.
Inadequate? I've been there, you know.
The act of noticing.
Observation.
To surrender.
Relinquish.
Done without delay.
Prompt.
Speechless with amazement.
Oh, dumbfounded. Duh.
Duh.
That was me right there.
To pass into or through.
Permeate. I love a good brain teaser to start my day at 1 p.m.
That was fun. I don't know how many you got right. I didn't mark them down. So
all of them.
I don't think so.
I think I only got one wrong. I know it wasn't very exciting. I was in my, my zone, dude.
So the last thing I really want to talk about is the ending. Basically, what happened? The Giver and Jonas decide that they want the world and the society to kind of break free of this dystopia vibe of the society. When Jonas leaves the society, all of the memories that he kind of has, like, escapes out and other people can kind of pick them up is, like, what I was picking up. Mm-hmm. They wanted to break Jonas out and go to a different society and try to kind of give memories away. The Giver gives him all these memories within, like, a couple weeks, and they're going to do it farther away, but because Gabriel was going to be released, they were like, no, we're going to do it now, because we need to save him. So him and Gabriel get on their bike, he manages to get out, and they're running around the woods for a while. It gets cold, he starts losing the memories, and I didn't like the ending. I feel like it was a little rushed, and I don't think it was planned very well. It felt repetitive almost. It was just him not having food, being hungry, then being cold, and then being hungry, then being cold, actually experiencing starvation and stuff like that, which I like. I think that was a good way to, like, show how his memories are becoming real. And it also ends in, like, a open ending where we don't know if he's actually experiencing finding this home with all these lights, or if it's just him, like, actively dying or having the hypothermia and, like, all this kind of stuff. It's very open-ended ending, but I personally just didn't love the ending.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. Like, I do like an open ending. I'm not opposed to it. Like, I think it's cool to see, like, what you think happens. I like that you can see the planes trying to get them, and, like, because obviously they want him back. They don't want the people to experience these memories, and they need someone to take the rest of them. And so they want him back. But, like, you can see the planes slowly starting to, like, less and less go. I just don't know how long he could be going for. Like, where is he going? Where is this? I get that the society couldn't just be next door. Like, obviously someone would have found it already. It was really sad to see him go through all this stuff the whole time, and then he doesn't find what he's looking. He's like, there's something out there. I know it is. There's somewhere I can go where I'll be happier. And he tries to find that, and tries to find that escape for him and Gabriel. Pretty much, I don't think he found it. I really do like at the end where he gets up to the hill and it's the sled. I think it was just his memory, remembering that, because that was the first memory that the giver gave him. So it was cool to see it do that and then come back at the end. And he sits on the sled and he goes down the hill. And then he's like, he talks about how he thinks he hears music, which he never took from the giver. The giver said that was his absolute favorite, and he didn't want to take that from him. He wanted him to keep that memory. Then he hears it. Did he hear it? Did he get on this? There was definitely not just a sled sitting at the top of a hill that he got to. Mm-hmm. The same sled that he went on before and just was like, oh, let me ride this. I don't want him to end that way either. So, like, it makes you want to think that was actually what was happening, because you don't want to see him end like this after this whole story of he went through so much, and you don't want him to just die, because... Yeah.
At the end, you just watch him and Gabriel kind of slowly pass away, and it's like, but...
I love that, but, like, I get it, I guess. I get why they do it. And I do really like seeing the memories become real things that they have to experience. Like, I think that's super cool. But I think when I read this as a kid, I absolutely thought that was the sled on the hill. Mm-hmm. And, like, he was going to join that society. And I was like, yeah, finally. Yeah. But, like, now I'm like, wow, he just straight up died. Like, no way. No way there's just a sled and he just rode it.
Like, I definitely think it's part of his imagination, but I don't think they would have killed him off. Like, what do you think is going to happen in all this? So this is a part of a 4-book series. The next one is called Gathering Blue. I haven't read it, but I know that it's with a different main character. That's all I know, because it's a girl now.
Honestly, don't know how I haven't read the rest of them. I really don't know. Like, if it's with a different main character, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if it's going to be in the society. Like, I think the name Gathering Blue is really cool. It makes me think that she's, like, the gathering the colors kind of thing and, like, learning them. But
I think we'll see Jonas and Gabriel again. If anything, maybe Gabriel, because he's so young. But I feel like Jonas is going to live. I feel like he might meet up with this new main character. Or at some point, they're going to meet up. Maybe not in this book, because maybe in the 3rd or 4th book, they're going to all meet up. I also could see, like, Jonas, as he gets older, becoming a new leader, maybe. Like, he becomes part of the Elder because he has all these memories, possibly. But with him being so young, I really don't know how far out. I know it happens in the same time period, but I don't know if it's, like, the same year, the same season. I don't know anything about that, so I'm excited to see.
We might have to read them. Come back and talk about the other ones.
Alright, so what would you say, in your own personal opinion, these are just your own thoughts, what would you change about this book?
I really don't know that I would change a lot. I know that this was, like, pretty impactful book for me, that every time I've read it. I really do like this book. I think that she did a really good job. I know, like, I don't read as many books, so for me, like, books impact me differently, where, like, if I've read a lot more books, like, I'm sure that there would be others I would like a lot more. Like, I know this isn't, like, the best written book ever, but I really do like the message in, like, the story it tells. I think that it could have been a longer book, but I also haven't read the other ones, so knowing that this is the first of a series, it doesn't always have to be longer, is they could explain more in the other books, and I really don't know what happens, so maybe after I read those, I'll be like, okay, this book still could have been changed, but maybe go a little bit more into detail with the color, just because that was my favorite part. Is, like, him learning the color. Like, it goes into detail of him learning red more than anything else, but then he's just like, oh, I can see these other colors now. And it's like, wait, I want to know how, or what the first thing he saw in that color was.
It was the rainbow. She showed him the rainbow.
True, he did show him the rainbow.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. There's not a ton I would change. I think if she would have aimed this at a young adult audience, she could have gotten a little bit more, even more descriptive. And I would have liked to see a little bit more emotions that he learns. Yeah. Besides, like, just happiness and love and, you know, the main ones. I would want to see, like, some other things that he could learn. So, just see more memories being shared would be cool.
Yeah, like, they definitely went into, like, love a lot, which is, like, cool to see him learn that, because that's just, like, so human. You see him, I don't know if I would call it, like, lose respect, kind of start to hate his dad at the end, and, like, have that feeling of, like, loss. A child he didn't even know. It just, like, ruined his whole world. Dive a little bit more into those negative emotions. He did talk about how he feels angry a lot of the time now. He goes a little bit into it, but it would have been cool to see more of, like, the negative.
Yeah. Well, that draws a close to this. We are going to do something a little bit different here on the podcast. We make up our own little rating scale. So I would give The Giver by Lois Lowry 8 new emotions from an old man touching my back out of 10.
Oh man, every time that I think that I'm funny with these, yours is so much better.
But yeah, so I like it. Obviously, listen to the podcast if you want to know why. But I think it's a great book to kind of be your first view at the world, like you said earlier, of taking in without having to see and experience it yourself, being able to go in and kind of learn these new emotions. And then there's an old guy putting his hand on your back.
Yeah.
And you're learning those emotions.
Kind of like it. But, like, you kind of don't, because he hurts you, too. But he doesn't want to.
He loves you. He doesn't want to.
I personally, just because of the impact this book has given me, would rate it 9 shades of gray out of 10.
Oh, God. But yeah, we're kind of drawing to a close here. Thank you for coming back on to the podcast.
Of course. Always happy to be here. I'm glad that you forced me to read books sometimes. Because I do like reading books, but boy, is my patience thin.
Time consuming, yeah. I believe we're going to be on next month with my favorite book. Flipping the script here. Oh. Hi, Kim. Yeah, we're going to do my favorite book. I'm really excited. I love that series, and I can't wait to dive in with you. And thank you again.
Of course. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.
Thank you for turning the pages with us today. If you've enjoyed this episode, show your support by leaving a review, sharing the episode, and following the podcast on Instagram at The Book Stop Podcast. Join us on Patreon for early access to episodes and other additional content. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Hope you are too.